you see a stone cut out without human hands, Jesus. How's he cut out without human hands? He was born of a virgin. Why was he born of a virgin? Because he came from behind the veil that had never been torn. He was seated from heaven. Well, yeah, but like, what's the origin of the Christmas tree? Well, legend has it. There's probably a lot of legends. I mean, we can Google so many things today. You can probably get 15 different answers. But the reformer, Martin Luther, was walking through the forest praying late one night, and he looked up and he saw the stars shining through the tree branches. And so he thought, wow, that's beautiful. And so they went home, and so what they started doing is putting candles on tree branches. Yeah, thank God for electricity. Right? And so the whole point of the Christmas tree is it's symbolizing the stars shining through the tree branches, right? And for me, that's symbolizing heaven touching earth. Now, we were in Hobby Lobby this week.
No.
Who likes Hobby Lobby? It's dangerous. Don't worry, everyone else in Destin and Santa Rosa Beach and Fort Walton, they were all there too. Right? We went to a different store, it was empty, and we're like, oh, they were all at Hobby Lobby, And so we saw this, and I thought, isn't that beautiful? I mean, it's not necessarily a depiction of the upper and lower room in Bethlehem where they probably were, right? It's a little bit different because in the actual story, you would have had an upper room where the family lived and the lower room where they would bring the animals in at night, and you would have a stone wall, and in the stone wall there would be something like this, like a cutout that would have been the trough or the manger, and Jesus would have been placed in the wall, so to speak. But an interesting thing began to happen over the years. You had the stories come out of Israel, but because people weren't Israeli or Jewish or connected to that culture, what they started to do was retell the stories of Jesus in the culture of their day and their setting and their time. Right? And so, for us, it makes more sense to kind of see Jesus in a manger with like hay and stuff, because that's how you would probably more likely to see it in our culture. So even though it's not technically accurate, it's still a beautiful picture. I like how the light shining down, and you got all the stars shining through, all that kind of stuff.
So pretty.
That was free. I just wanted to talk about the painting. I thought it was cool. And all right, so what we're going to do in the future is we're going to go through certain stories, like when stars come near, the king appears, right? Certain things, like the story of the wise men, like why they show up, why they give Jesus what they gave Jesus, where did they come from? Did you know all of that stuff's actually historical? Like we can look that up, we can see which culture they came from, all the implications of that. So we're going to save that for later. What we're going to do today is talk about why Jesus came. Like, most of us in here are Christians today, we probably know this. Great, we get to reinforce it. So, let's start out with this. Jesus came on mission. Jesus came on assignment. There was a purpose. There was a plan. He had an intention. He had a revelation to bring. All right, let's just jump into it. Genesis 3:15 says, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. And he shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel." And so what's happening here is Adam and Eve have fallen, and God comes immediately not to correct them, but to say, hey, look, you guys, you stepped outside of family, you stepped outside of the image. Don't worry. Here's the redemption plan. We always read the opposite. We always read that God's coming to all right, boop, you're out of here. He's coming to say, hey, you've stepped outside, but don't worry, I'm going to step outside with you and pull you back into the fold of family. And so there's a being in the room that he's addressing here, right? It says that, Eve walked over to the tree and a being was there. It says a snake, But in Hebrew, it's the same root word for the word seraph, or seraphim, right? And so we think of this little snake slithering around when, if we actually were to look at the picture that was being painted in Eden, was it that, or is it this heavenly being that they were accustomed to seeing, whose job and role was to cause them to worship the Lord, but this time this being was being deceptive. He was being sneaky, right? And what did he do? He questioned the identity of the Word of God that was already alive inside of him. Has God said? Does God really not want you to partake of this? What happens if you do? I don't know. Let me try it. Right? And so they stepped out of the framework of family, which exists and abides inside the Word of God. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, in doing so, they look at themselves, and oh my gosh, like, oh, I've been exposed. I need to do something to hide. So they no longer looked at themselves the way that God saw them. They looked at themselves from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They felt exposed. So God comes himself, and he comes and covers them. And he says, look, here's the redemption. Here's the plan. One of your descendants is going to remove all the authority, pain, and everything that this being just afflicted upon you. He's going to remove all of that. And like Haley says, it's just a plankton on a microphone anyways. I'm going to say microphone. He's going to remove that influence and that voice so you can be reset in the image of my voice. Yeah. So the plan right here in Genesis is set in motion for this descendant to come. Right? And the enemy's like, he's this heavenly being. And he's saying, this earthly being is going to remove your heavenly, or not your heavenly, but he's going to remove your authority. Right? So you have a natural being that the Father is saying is going to remove the authority and influence that this heavenly being has placed upon his natural children. So when Jesus comes, there's already a plan set in motion. There's already something happening behind the scenes. He's coming on mission to fulfill the plan of his Father. So all throughout the Old Testament, you have all these they're called Messianic prophecies, and they're peppered. They're all over the place. The lowest count is 324 up to 456 actual Old Testament prophecies about Messiah fulfilled in Jesus. And then you kind of expand that through like a prophetic lens, it swells up to over 1,000. But over and over and over again, you see in the Old Testament, Messiah is coming. It's the answer to the sin problem. Messiah is coming. It's the answer to the sickness problem. Messiah is coming. He's the answer to the sin problem. Messiah is coming. He's the answer to this. He's the answer to that. He's the answer to everything. Yeah. You can live as holy as you want. You can make all the sacrifices that you want. You can do all of these things, but it's still going to fall short because you're stuck in a pattern, in a cycle of a way of thinking about both God and yourself that's lower than He intended. You're stuck thinking about yourself as, what do I need to do to get into family, rather than thinking from the position and the place of family. So who's the only one who could reveal family? The Son. He said, you see me, you see the Father. You see me, you see how good the Father really is and how good He always has been. All of the judgments in the Old Testament are all against everything that would afflict us. And so if you're identifying with that, you're identifying with judgment. But if you're identifying with His grace and mercy, you're identifying with family. So check this out. You got these Psalms. These are known as the Messianic Psalms. They're really awesome. Psalm 22, Jesus actually quotes this psalm when He's on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? He's not necessarily saying that the Father wouldn't look at Him in that moment. What He was doing is He would say the first line of the stanza of a scroll, and that would let everyone around Him know that He's quoting the entire scroll because they didn't have chapter and verse. So He's saying everything you know about this psalm and this scroll is being fulfilled in front of you.
Yes.
I am the answer to Psalm 22.
Yes.
I am standing in a place of where you think God can't see you. I am standing in that position so that God can see you. Psalm 23, he's the good shepherd, right? He's the sacrifice. And he's like, all right, I'm the sacrifice. Now you can find your way home. You can find your way to the good waters. You can find your way to the place of nourishment and the streams of life. You can find your way back to me. And in Psalm 24, he's the ascended one. Who can ascend the hill of the Lord? Who can stand in his holy place? Who can ascend? The one who the psalmist has been talking about for the last 2 chapters can ascend, and in his ascension, you see your redemption. Uh-oh. Might get Pentecostally up in here. Let me say it one more time. In his ascension, you can see your redemption. And that kind of feels good. Like, I can see why you're doing it. Can I get an amen? That's not my notes. It's just not there. That was
Holy Ghost.
that was the Holy Ghost. He says, who can ascend the hill of glory? Who can stand in his holy place? He who has not lifted up his soul to idols or sworn deceitfully. He who has a clean hands and a pure heart. Is he going, oh my gosh, you're a bad guy. Your hands have been up to no good. I've been watching. I got my eye on you. In your heart, better do a checkup on that thing. I mean, you gotta get this stuff clean before you can ascend. Is that what he's saying? Or is he feeling something bigger and deeper? If our hands aren't clean and our hearts aren't pure, we're desensitized to what he's already doing and saying in our lives. We're unaware of the grace that's already surrounding us because we're filling our attention and our gaze with other things. But if we set our gaze, Papa, that in itself is metanoia or ascension. It's thinking from above. It's eating of the divine feast and fellowship that he's already prepared for us. It's us choosing to eat from here. Am I good enough? Am I bad enough? You know? The legend of Santa. I can tell you some stories about the real Saint Nick that will blow your mind. We'll save that for later. You know, our modern understanding of Santa basically comes from the poem, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas and All Through the House." That's where we get the whole idea that he kind of goes in there and does that. And then another song, he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. Yeah. I mean, it was trying to get kids to behave and all that kind of stuff in a different generation. So if we understand the setting it came in, it makes us appreciate it more. That being said, like, you better watch out, you better not shop, you better not cry till anyway. Wait, where's the Naughty Nice line? Am I even in the right song?
Yeah.
That's Naughty or Nice is somewhere in there. Right? Yeah. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. I saw a meme this week, and the guy was like this. And it said, okay, I can't. I just, the PR police just arrested me. I'll tell you privately if you really want. I was about to be Nazi. It was just like, no, better be nice. But naughty or nice, that sounds like, am I being good or evil?
Right.
Being good check marks, ooh, I feel better. Bad check marks, ooh, I feel bad.
Yeah.
Instead of, wait, ooh, you've already checked all the good check marks and erased all the evil check marks from my life. Oh, if I focus on that, I'm going to find myself not doing those bad things because I'm secure in my identity of who you say I am. So again, we're walking through the Old Testament. You have all of these different prophecies. Now this is one of my favorite. Isaiah. For a child will be born to us. A son will be given. It's easy to read that and quote. But not, the Father's saying, here's my Son. I'm giving him to you. Do with him as you please.
Come on.
You said gifts. He gave the gift of himself. And then he allowed humanity to take what was the worst in itself and put it on him. Have your way with me, humanity. I will allow it so that you can see I will rise again and everything you placed on me will stay buried. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. There will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace. Oh wait, I thought it was supposed to get darker and darker in the last days. I don't know if you've noticed, but darkness and light, they can't coexist. Right? So the more the light, the brighter it gets. Right? On the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and righteousness. From then on and for... Wait, what? From then on and forevermore, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. The government of shalom. Remember, the word shalom means the authority that binds to chaos. Does anything in your life feel chaotic? Peace, be still. If he's at peace in you, then the storms around you can't remove that peace. Jesus wasn't moved by the storms on the outside because he didn't have any storms on the inside. Hey, you want to take that off? Go ahead. The disciples, when the storm on the outside hit the disciples, it exposed the turmoil that was in them. Oh my gosh, what are they going to do? Now remember, these are sailors. These are fishermen. On their whole lives on the water. It wasn't like a small wave. Oh my gosh. I'm just impressed at how Jesus was able to sleep in the boat. It was probably going... I just got dizzy. It looked chaotic, but Jesus was at peace in the midst of chaos. If you can have peace and chaos, it'll cause confusion, but when storms hit them, you're the first one they'll call. Where are the stormless ones around me? I need them. All of a sudden, they'll quit feasting on the things below, and they'll start feasting on the things above. They might criticize you here, but when things get tempting, you'll be the first one on their speed dial. Can you pray for me? I've been waiting. I've already been praying for you. Ha ha ha. Ready for a glory sandwich? Now the cool thing about government, remember we've talked about church. We've talked about ecclesia. Ecclesia, the church, the governing body, the elected ones, the ones called out to govern the influence of heaven and the earth. So he's saying the ruler of this kingdom is coming and his government will know no end. And who does he choose to govern and to reign? He chooses his family. The ones who look at him and see Son of the Father. Because it's that family revelation that releases the authority that binds the chaos over all the cosmos. Do you know chaos and cosmos are actually the opposite words in Greek? Right? Because cosmos means divinely intended order. It says in Ephesians that the manifold wisdom of God, we talked about 3 weeks, the manifold wisdom of God will be made known through the church, the governing authority, the family, to the principalities and powers in heavenly places. Right? So they're all operating in chaos, trying to rip apart family, rip apart identity, rip apart who we are and our natural way that we were created. And they're assailing identity and marriage and family so hard in this generation for a reason. Because I don't know if there's been a generation yet alive who's grabbed hold of the revelation of kingdom family as much as we have. So they're doing everything in the natural to destroy this thing, but it's actually adding fuel to the fire, because the more you try to destroy something, the more it makes people that you're trying to afflict hungry and desperate for the real thing.
Yes.
Who am I? This is what media says, but it hasn't answered the question yet. Who am I? And when we see the I am, I mean, just in looking at us, he tells us who we are. Who am I? Oh, I see you. Oh. I know who I am.
Yeah. Oh.
Don't think I'm going to make it today. There's the clock. Oh, the clock's back there. You can't see the clock. You're good.
I'll remember that.
And our Papa Leif says, he came to seek and save that which was lost. He tells the story. Where was he? Cambodia. He knows anything about Cambodia? Pol Pot. Was it the Khmer Rouge?
Yes.
Did I say that right? Khmer Rouge. So there was a revolution in the country, and so what they started doing is they were killing all the smart people. And most of the people doing the killing were 14 and 15-year-olds with Kalashnikovs and weird torture devices. It's a really bad, sad thing. And if someone even looked smart, they would take them and they would torture them and then they would kill them. And they have all these massive burials known as the killing fields. Our brother and sister-in-law were missionaries there for 9 years. So Leif went there recently, and you have this affliction upon the nation that says you can't read, you can't write. And so Leif's up there preaching, and he's talking about how Jesus came to save that which was lost. Well, what was lost in that country? Nobody could read this. Some could, but not many. Right? And so these precious ladies were up there. How'd the story go?
They were praying that they gave up to read the Bible.
They had a hunger and a heart to read the Bible in their language, and they couldn't.
They couldn't read it all.
They couldn't read it all. Yeah, they couldn't read it all. So they came up, they prayed for them, they handed them the Bible, and they started reading it line for line.
Yes. The whole room. Come on.
He came to save that which was lost. What was lost? Reading was lost.
Wow.
What was found? Reading was found. His word was found.
So good. Jesus.
Let's go ahead and turn to this. Isaiah 53. Let's just dive in real quick.
Okay.
Are you understanding that Jesus is on mission?
Yeah. So good. Yes, sir.
53, let's just start from the top. We'll take it from the top. Who has believed our report? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He has no stately form or majesty, nor would we look at him, nor his appearance would we take pleasure in him. What's he saying here? He didn't come full of glory radiating. He came and he took the form of a man. He's not saying Jesus was ugly. He's saying that when the Messiah comes, you're going to recognize by what's coming out of his heart and what's happening around him, which is going to look like family and restoration.
Yeah.
So don't look for this glowing being, this glowing figure. You're going to have to recognize him in a different way. Although we know what happened in the Mount of Transfiguration. Poof, here I am, burning. And that reveals the two natures of Jesus right there, right? He was despised and abandoned by men, a man in great pain and familiar with sickness. Do you have something familiar that's been bugging you? He says, I am the answer to that. Recurring. The enemy likes to recycle things. He likes to recycle things in our body. Symptoms. Dang it, I thought I was healed. Well, you were, but he's trying to recycle something.
Yeah. Come on.
Oh, I told myself I would never look at that again. But you did. I did. But you should look again. I should. No, I should. He's trying to recycle something. He's trying to recalibrate you to a fallen system so you can identify as poor, wretched sinners.
Come on.
And if we can get in agreement with that, we're never going to take flight. We're just going to wander around the desert, not going through the waters of our new birth into our sonship and our daughtership. So he's saying right here, I can identify with that because when he comes, he's going to subject himself to that, but that is not going to overcome him.
Amen.
He was abandoned by men. He felt lonely, rejected, bullied. And he's walking through it all. Everything that could come against us, you know what? I'll stand here and I'll take it. You know what? I'm going to stand here. I'm going to sit in this with you. I'm going to stand here. Jesus was on mission. Assignment. And we'll get to the finale of what that assignment is in a minute. He was despised and we had no regard for him. But here's the thing, he's not holding that against us. Because he regarded us higher than our lack of regard for him. He knew that if he could regard us, even though we didn't have any regard for them, we would fall in love with him. That's the secret. That's why he didn't come shining on fire, even though that's who he is, and he revealed that. You see him appear like that over and over. He came in the form of a man and revealed the love of God, because us as his children, we could then look at him and say, oh, I can fall in love with a God who looks like me. Oh wait, he's part of the family. If he comes exploding with fire, we'll bow down and worship him, not because we're in love, but because we're in awe. Awe is fine if it's born from love. Awe without love says, oh, I've got to bow down to the greater being, but not have a relationship with the greater being. I can relate to someone who looks like me and who came as me. We have connection. Jesus says, I'm going to go down so that they'll see that they have something in common with me and we can unite and become one. However, it was our sickness that he himself bore, and he carried the pains, and our pains that he carried. Yet we ourselves assumed that he had been afflicted, struck down by God and humiliated, that he was pierced for our offenses. It says it right there. We assume that God is doing it. They say it, it says right here in the passage, that he was pierced for our offenses. It wasn't God punishing Jesus, it was Jesus saying, I'm taking their offenses upon myself. He was crushed for our wrongdoings, and the punishment for our well-being he was laid upon him. And by his wounds we are what? Healed. He said, I'll take this mark in my body so you can take this healing. Let's do an exchange system. Your pain for my health. Your chaos for my peace. Your trauma for my healing. So again, that's the verse, that's the passage in the chapter that we're all familiar with. It paints a much bigger picture when we see God's design and pattern when we read it from that perspective. You guys doing all right? Let's keep going. All right, so this is where it gets cool. I mean, it's already been cool. Thank you. Actually, let me back up. So the Old Testament is full of prophecy after prophecy after prophecy after prophecy. The Messiah is coming. And so you get this weird little pattern in the Old Testament. It's called the rock cut out without human hands. Who's heard of that? The students look, yeah? I'm like, well, why do you add that little caveat? Like, who cares if it's a rock cut out without human hands? Well, there's a couple of things we can get out of that. A rock cut by human hands creates effort. There's work. There's something required. A rock cut out by human hands is something provided.
Oh my God.
So like David. David would be like, hey David, grab this sword and put this armor on. Well, that's made of metal, so it's a rock cut out by human hands. He said, no, I can't wear this. I'm not used to operating by the ways of the world. Let me go to the brook, which represents the presence. And he grabs 5 smooth stones. The stones were smooth, not because they were cut out and chiseled out by man's hands, but because they were in the presence, they were in the water. And they were also in family. And when family rubs together, it creates a smooth surface. One of the problems that plagues family, as soon as we disagree, we want to hijack it out of there because it was uncomfortable. But what if that uncomfortable was removing something that was prohibiting you from stepping into your destiny?
Yes.
It's like a trampoline. You got to go down before you bounce up. Oh my gosh, everything's falling apart. I'm going down. Well, then you better get ready because your flight is about to happen. Yeah. Everything's falling apart. Ooh, that means peace is coming. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down to downtown and get my shoes shined because I'm about to be walking in some sunshine. No, I'm trying too hard. Just stop. Stop right there. Now this crazy thing has happened. Jesus, I'm trying to preach. It's like he thinks he's in charge. Like he's creating the universe or something. Yes, I did. Everything inside of you, the makeup of your body is as intricate as the universe. When you look out and see the stars and the galaxies, they exist in you. It's this intricate internal masterpiece. I know. Yes, the screen's getting blurry. Because when you focus on his world, you realize how real he really is, and then your world begins to fade, and all the natural things that hold all this stuff together. It's like, well, his world's boundless, so things begin to happen. What was I talking about? Oh, yes. So before David kills Goliath, who knows what he does? He prophesies. He prophesies to Goliath what was about to happen, and then he slings the stone, and it goes forth. Right? So in Daniel, he has a dream, and he sees this picture of this rock striking the statue, a rock cut out without human hands, and the statue falls to pieces. Well, that statue looks a lot like all the armor and stuff that Goliath was wearing. And he said, that rock's going to become a stone that fills the entire earth. You got all of these Old Testament prophecies against the giants of the land. But then you see a stone cut out without human hands, Jesus. How's he cut out without human hands? He was born of a virgin. Why was he born of a virgin? Because he came from behind the veil that had never been torn. He was seated from heaven. He wasn't seated from the natural. He was seated from heaven, but he took on the embodiment of everything we are. So and this right here is a demonstration. Like, I was feeling weak today. Like, what do I have to say? It's like, don't worry, my words will be in your mouth. You don't have to have it all figured out. He's already got it figured out. So if you lean on his figuring and his calculations and not on your own understanding, it's going to transform everything. Inside out. So he prophesies, and then the rock, David, now he had the skill to hit the target. But he could have slung that rock on the broadside of a barn. It only had one destination because it had to follow the prophetic word that had already been declared. Are you stewarding your prophetic words? Because if you are, heaven's inheritance is following the word with the embodiment and the reception of that which was prophesied. So the Father is prophesying to the earth. The Messiah is coming, and then the Messiah comes like a rock cut out without human hands to the earth. The Son. Right? You guys tracking? So who did Jesus come for? You. It came for you. Now this is a crazy thing. Check this verse out. Is it still up there? Trying to? It froze. But it froze in a good spot. But the natural man does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they are spiritually appraised. The natural person is going to think the supernatural is dumb and silly because he has no value for it. Because he has no value for it, he's not willing to make any kind of trade or exchange in heavenly things. But when you see the value for it, you're willing to sell all to find the treasure in the field. But he who is spiritual appraises all things, yet he himself is appraised by no one. For who has known the mind of the Lord that he may instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. Now, it's much harder for us to believe that this amazing lover, Savior, Messiah, Lord came, and he knows you perfectly, intimately, top to bottom. Every success, every failure, but loves you passionately, and nothing can ever compromise that love. And then he loves you. I can't remember everything I just said. From one person to the next. Intricately, amazingly. He loves you, he loves you, he loves you, he loves you. Fully, completely. With all the capacity, with everything inside of him. Well, how can a God know every single person, not only in this room, but everyone who's ever lived that way? Well, that's easy for him, but it's hard for us to wrap our mind around it. But it says, who may know the mind of the Lord? It may instruct him. We have the mind of Christ. When we have the mind of Christ, now I can look at you and see you in that eternal capacity that he sees you in. Yeah. Now I can look at you and see that eternal capacity that he sees you in. Yeah. Right? I may not know everything about you, but as the song says, he has you memorized. And the fact that he has you memorized, it brings a smile to his face. For the joy set before him, you are his portion, you are his prize. We are his portion, we are his prize. We sing that, but do we believe it? So Jesus came on assignment. I've got 2 pages, but I'm going to land it, so don't get scared. A passage for that is when Jesus said, he told Nathanael, I saw you sitting under a fig tree. What? I mean, there wasn't like a ring camera. Like Jesus didn't sneak over. Ring. I saw you sitting there. Right? And that's revealing to Nathanael, not only did he see him there, he was actually sitting there with him.
Wow.
Oh, I thought I was alone. No, I was actually there with you. We were together. Oh. Ooh. My God, my Lord. Because you think this is something, but wait until you see angels ascending and descending. Yeah. Oh. Jesus knowing every detail about everyone ever born isn't hard for him, it's hard for us. Jesus loving us all, knowing everything about us, and seeing such beauty that it made him draw us in isn't hard for him, it's hard for us. Though it seems hard, it was actually how we were created. To be loved by him and to love him. To be seen by him and to see him. To be known by him and to know him. He wants us to know him. He wants us to know how he feels. Yeah. That's why you have Song of Solomon in here. It says when we look at him, it causes his heart to beat faster. Oh, my beloved. But I could never cause God to do that because I know me. that he knows you better than you know yourself, and he still says, you cause me to be pastor.
That's good.
So every reason you have not to look at him, he didn't come to expose that, he came to erase it. He's not here to expose you. It says the Holy Spirit will convict the world according to sin, righteousness, and judgment. Sin says you're outside of the family. Righteousness says this is who you really are. And judgment says I've dealt with everything that was afflicting you. If we read that same verse from a fallen perspective, oh no. We read it from a sonship, oh yeah. See, these recycled thoughts cause us to spiral downwards into an oblivion. And oblivion means it's as if it didn't exist. Oblivion tears apart your identity over and over and over again until you have nothing left and you're just existing on some kind of external substance, force, or some kind of thing in life that's endless and empty. But identity, you spiral upwards and you're realizing more and more who God is and who He says you are.
Holy Ghost.
Jump off the tree. Literally jump off the tree.
All right, we'll land this thing. I know I went over. So Christmas, right? Christ Mass, the gathering around the Anointed One, the gathering around the Messiah in celebration of something. So let's focus. I mean, there's all the, some people are like, oh yeah, all the Christmas stuff, half of that's pagan, all this and that, this and that. Just ignore that, right? When was Jesus actually born? It could have been a different day. No one actually knows the day. This is the day where most people celebrate it. So let's just celebrate the season and the fact that the one who was on mission came to find us and we were His assignment.
Yeah, that's it. Hello.
Let's not focus on the darkness. Let's focus on the light and what He's building.
Yes.
Right? I'm not saying none of that stuff exists or that it's not a reality. I'm saying in this season, let's focus on Him. Right? Don't hear what I'm not saying. Just hear what I am saying. So as we dive in, Mama Steph is speaking next week. I have no idea what she's talking about. And then me and Lisa will come back. There's no Sunday service on Christmas Day because you can join your family, but we will be here Christmas Eve. But let's just wrap our hearts, our minds, and our spirits around this Messiah, this Savior. You see this beautiful, beautiful picture of His government. We sing the songs of His government. Of His increase, there will be no end. That means that His government is constantly increasing in you. It's constantly increasing in those around you. What do you do at work? His government is constantly increasing through the creativity that your life is fashioned to. What are your dreams? What are your desires? What are you born to do? That is how His government increases. It increases through you.